Hey, welcome to this edition of Thrive. I hope it finds you well. As always, it's my hope that what I would say would be of encouragement to you and help you thrive in the life that is yours. I think last time I might have spoken about finding your voice, about learning to live out of the fullness of who you are. And one of the reasons I think it's important for us is that when we begin to live out of who we really are, one of the things that happens is we become less hypocritical. And before you get defensive, the truth is that if we're honest with ourselves, we're all hypocrites at times, aren't we? We all find ourselves acting in ways that we know are not consistent with our values, that are not consistent with our beliefs, that don't reflect the version of us that we really want to be. And the reason I say that is that at those times, I think it exposes some things that we can actually begin to deal with in our life instead of just beating ourselves up. The word hypocrite, it actually comes from the theatre way back in the days of Rome. It just simply means a mask wearer. They didn't have the fancy sets that we have, the costume designs and all those sorts of things. And so they would put on a mask just to show that they are playing another character. And I think the reality is we all wear masks, don't we? And we wear them for a lot of reasons. Some of us wear them because we want to protect ourselves. We feel too vulnerable. There are things in our lives that we're just afraid of letting other people see or experience because they're just too personal, they're too tender. We've had bad experiences. And so we've learned, haven't we, just to wear a mask in order to protect ourselves. Other people wear masks to try and impress people, to put on an image, to present themselves as being something that they're not. Other people wear masks just to fit in. They look at a social group or could be at work and they observe how people interact and the way that they conduct themselves and they put on a mask and become like that so that they can fit in as well. And I simply raise it because we all wear masks and when we wear a mask, what we're really doing is we're not living out of who we are. When we wear masks, it's a symptom that we're still struggling to find our voice. We're still struggling to come to terms with who we are and to live out of the fullness of that. And so rather than risk and be vulnerable, what we do is we put on a mask and we play a game, so to speak. And I just think that we rob ourselves of so much that could be ours when we do that, because we become a little bit too familiar with the masks and they end up becoming our persona. And again, it just stops us from living out of the fullness of who God's called us to be. But you know, while we're doing that, God's doing a work in us as well. And the Bible calls it sanctification, which is really just a fancy word for becoming more like Jesus. You know, and it's when we talk about sanctification and those sorts of things in churches, I think so often what happens is we sort of we tend to generalize it and we sort of have this idea, well, I'm going to become like the Jesus in the Bible. And I think in a lot of ways that's certainly true. We do want to become like Jesus. But imagine if we were all like Jesus, we'd all be the same. And we know we're not all the same. We're all different. We're fearfully and wonderfully created. We're unique. Your voice is unique. And we need to hear it because it communicates and conveys so much that adds to the symphony, so to speak, that gives music to life in a meaningful and uplifting way. And so when we talk about sanctification, what we're really talking about is the process whereby God perfects Jesus in each of us. So we are becoming like Jesus, but it's Jesus in us. And so it's going to find slightly different expression in your life to what it would in my life. There are certain values, certain character traits, there are certain attitudes that are common, sure, but they're going to be expressed in different ways because they're being expressed through you and I, and we're fearfully and wonderfully made uniquely. And so we need to recognize that, because I think that when we grasp that, then it takes away some of the sense of discouragement that can be around our lives at times, which again is why we wear these masks, because it's easy for us to get down on ourselves because we look at what hasn't happened instead of looking at what has happened. And I want to suggest that the reason it's important to learn to to see yourself as God sees you and to begin to live out of that, and to recognize that it's a journey, that it's a lifelong process. I'm not the person that I want to be. I'm not yet the person that God needs me to be. But I'm not the person I was either. I'm a work in progress, and so are you. And it's a lifelong progress, a lifelong process. And the reason I say that is that if we accept that, it becomes easier to accept ourselves where we are today and to live out of that, because the world needs to see the real you. The God needs people to see the real you, because when they see the real you, what they see is the way that grace works in a person's life bit by bit. They see the changes, they see the struggles, and they see the way that you deal with it. And so instead of wearing a mask, it becomes important for us to drop those and just let people see God at work in our lives, because it brings heaven to earth. It makes heaven real. It makes God real. It makes grace real in powerful ways for people. And I think that by learning to live without a mask so that other people can see us, it also brings us to peace into our own lives. It creates confidence in ourselves, because we find that we're actually okay. We don't need to wear the masks the way that we thought we did. It'll be a little bit uncomfortable to begin with, but the longer we persevere, the more comfortable we become in who we are. And so hopefully last time I shared with you, I think, some things that I've done to help me find my voice. I hope they were helpful for you. Let me just quickly just give you some thoughts about how you can learn to drop the masks and begin living out of who God's made you to be. The first one, I think, is just be yourself. Just be yourself. Just feel comfortable to be yourself. I know it's easy to say, but you've got to learn to be comfortable and not to pretend to be somebody that you're not, or not to pretend that you're something that you're not. You just be yourself and learn to accept yourself. The good thing about accepting yourself is it means that by definition it puts limitations on you, because you don't have to be like somebody else. You don't have to meet someone else's expectations. You just have to be consistent with who you are, and that's always a good thing. And it just takes pressure off, and it just gives you some freedom to be able to learn to appreciate yourself and live out of that. I think another thing is to treat others as you want to be treated. You know, when we wear masks, we're actually not treating people the way we want to be treated. We're actually putting on an act. When Jesus says to do unto others as we would have them do unto us, it wasn't so much just about being nice to people so they would be nice to you. It's deeper than that. I think that when we treat others as we want to be treated, what we're doing is we're creating up a dynamic that says, you know, I want to be treated as I am, so I'm going to treat you as you are. I want to be treated as a real person. I want you to engage with me as a real person, faults and all, and so I'm going to do the same to you. And so what happens is that the more that we actively try and treat others as we want to be treated, it puts us in touch with ourselves, so to speak. We drop the masks, and well, I'm carrying this hurt, but I'm going to treat others as great. I'm going to treat others graciously, because that's how I want people to treat me. I haven't been treated that way in the past, and that's why I've got these hurts, so I'm going to treat people graciously. And that, when grace comes back, then it begins that process of healing and restoration, and it's a really important dynamic in my experience. You know, I think it's really important for us to grasp that treating others as we want to be treated, it's not just about social niceties. It's about expressing what's truly in our hearts and living out of that. I think another thing to do too is to start caring less what other people think about you. Again, I know that's easier said than done. We all want to be liked. We all want people to look up to us and to accept us. But you know what? All the people whose opinion matters already like you. The people the people whose opinion really matters they're close to you already. They're your friends, they're your family, they're the ones who know you. They're the ones who already look beyond the mask and accept you for who you are. So you don't need to worry about what they think in that way. You don't need to put on an act. You just need to recognize that you can drop the mask and learn to enjoy yourself and to live out of that. And they'll give you feedback and they'll help you. And those are the ones whose opinion matters the most. The rest of them, you know what? It doesn't really matter. Why are you trying to impress people who have no interest in you? Why are you trying to impress people who can't actually progress you and help you? They might be able to promote you. They might be able to do other things, but it's not actually helping you become who God wants you to be. I think that, once you stop caring about the opinions of others, you're able to live out of the moment more and appreciate it. And when you live out of the moment, you're actually more inclined to live out of the true self. And that helps you find your voice. I know in Psalms or Proverbs 22, verse 1, I think it says, a good name is to be desired more than wealth. And your name is not created by wearing masks. It's created by being consistent, by living out of the fullness of who you are. And so in the midst of finding your voice, I want to encourage you, begin to drop the masks, because you're not going to find your voice while you're wearing masks. Your voice, it's going to be a muffled voice because it's got to break through a pretense. Just begin to accept who you are and to let God work in your life as you do what you can, so that you can go from strength to strength, feel comfortable in your skin and become all that God wants you to be. And trust me in this, that as you start to do that, that's when your reputation, your character is going to start standing out. That's when people are going to look to you and think, that's the type of person I want to be like. That's the type of person that gives me a sense of security and a sense of stability. They give me a sense of hope. That's the person who I'm going to turn to, because they're just so sincere. They're so genuine. So that's my encouragement for you tonight. I hope it's helpful. Until next time, God bless.